Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Happy Saturday to you guys. If you guys are tuning in, welcome to another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. It's Tony Lynch, and I am the host of this podcast. And we are normalizing the conversations about death, dying, and grief. These conversations that we have are from real people that have gone through some real things, and they're here to help you get through the situations that you're going through. Now, before we get started, I would like to say, if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And we will be switching platforms. So it's going to be very, very important that you guys go over to the YouTube channel to keep up with the episodes and stay up on top of the guests that we have. Now, before I bring on my next guest, I would like to say that this is for educational purposes only. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. Now, I'm bringing on my next guest, man. You guys are going to have a whole lot of fun with him. He is a podcast host, and he works. Well, I'm going to let him explain it, okay? And without further ado, Big Terraine, how you doing, brother?
I am well, Tony. Thank you so much for the opportunity, my friend. I'm so excited to be here today.
Oh man, it's my honor and privilege to have you up here, man. And before we get started, man, go ahead and tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Absolutely. So, hello, everyone. My name is Terraine. I am a podcaster. I am a relationship mentor, and I currently work with women who have been abused financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally, and I help them find success, happiness, and love in all the right areas because God knows they've been trying to find it in all the wrong areas. So here I am today.
Man, well, thank you, man. Thank you for the work that you do. And it's crazy that you say that, because I was I was checking out some of the YouTube channels, right? And they have these so-called relationship gurus up there. And I listen to some of the stuff that they tell these women, and I'm like, are you being realistic right now? Like, this is ridiculous, right? Now, there was one of them that I was watching, and the guy was telling the females, don't go for broke dudes. Don't go for your blue collar guys, right? You know what I'm saying? Go for the high value men. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, you do realize, I mean, we as men, we're honest about when we rate ourselves. And he's telling these women, I mean, and no disrespect to the women, I love my women and things like that. Most of these women are 10s. Let's be realistic, right? You know what I'm saying? And the men that he's telling him to go after, they have too many options out there, man. They have too many options, you know what I'm saying? And so why would they go after the average female when they can go after the models and things like that? You know, what are your thoughts on that, man?
Well, first and foremost, I know exactly the type of channels you're speaking of. A lot of my acquaintances and friends, they watch it and they promote it. But one thing I always tell people is there's a lot of advice out there for anything, right? For dating, for relationships, for work, for friendship, whatever the case is. But here is the test, okay? So if anyone ever comes up to you and they say, you know what, Tony, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do, and this is how you're going to do it when it comes to relationships, or if they speak to the women, ask yourself this: if they have all the knowledge in the world, why is it that they don't have a relationship? And more importantly, why is it that they don't have the relationship that they want? Why does it seem it's single people, chronically single people, who are telling you that you can be this, you can be this, you can be this, and you can get anything that you want, but yet they're not able to get it? So the example I always use is, if I was walking down the street and a person who looks homeless, walks homeless, talks like they're homeless, tells me how to be successful in the workplace and to get a job and to get a house, would I listen? The answer is no. So
Right.
I judge people's actions more than their words. And I always say that, it takes a special kind of evil to take advantage of the suffering and the misery of other people and try to monetize it. And I think a lot of channels that do that, that's the reason behind it. Hey, sign up for this, sign up for that, buy my this, buy my that. And then the cycle continues.
Yeah, I have seen that before too. As a matter of fact, I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine, and he's, bless his heart, he did the same thing. He was trying to tell me how to be a millionaire. And I'm looking at him. And finally, I just told him, I said, well, why don't you show me? Why don't you show me instead of telling me how to be a millionaire and successful in business? Because, I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm pretty successful at my business. I'm successful in many different areas when it comes down to business and investing in things like that. So since you know how to become a millionaire, why don't you show me instead of telling me? Because right now it's not looking like you are, man. And now ask yourself this question. Same thing as you said, Terraine. Why would I take advice from somebody who hasn't made $1 million yet? It doesn't make sense to me, right? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. But now I think that we're all at some point we're guilty of it, right? And I don't think it's personal. I think it's something that we like to see other people doing good, but sometimes we're so afraid internally to take those steps ourselves. And they may have the knowledge and everything. It may be good. It may be good knowledge. But I think there's another side to it. I think some people are just afraid of going to the next level because they've never had it before. Right?
Yeah, I think I don't want to use the word jaded, my friend, but I think I'm a little more skeptical. I think I believe in the goodness of people, and I also believe in the evilness of people.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I truly believe. Look at it. Okay. Look at it like this. How can you look someone in their face, tell them that if you do this, it's going to work for you, and yet it's not working for them? Right? Like, I think that is so evil, and it takes me back to like my religious days where it's basically the devil. Right? Like, if you look at it from any religious aspect, like, that is the works of the devil. So I can understand someone saying that, hey, here's a recommendation that I think may work for you, even though it didn't work for me. I can see how they position it that way. But I see people literally from the bedroom of their mom and dad's home telling people what stocks to buy to become rich. And then when you ask them, why aren't they rich or why don't they have a home, in their arrogance, they will say, I don't want it. I don't want to be rich. I don't want to be wealthy. I don't want to have money. But you're promoting the accumulation of wealth for everyone else, but yet you don't want it. I want everyone to be married, but I don't want to be married. I want everyone to be happy, but I want to be miserable. So I always look at it as, I think a lot of people know exactly what they're doing. And I think because attention is such a intoxicating drug or feeling, I think they're going to continue to talk to people in that way because they know that they're always going to have an ear that is going to be willing to listen.
Right. Okay. Okay. I want to add to that and get your thoughts on this because I do believe in this. I think the same thing, but I do believe there's another side to it as well, right? And I could be wrong. I don't know, man. I'm still a student in this world, right? I'm still exploring what it's like to be human, be fully human and present in my humanity as well. So I'm constantly thinking, I'm constantly exploring the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, how we connect in universe, source power, God, whatever people believe, right? You know what I'm saying? It's all energy at the end of the day. To me, it's all energy. You get out what you put in, and you have to put in work. Also, there's another side. I do believe that sometimes people can become teachers or carriers of a message to certain people, right? And I got that just from being in the grief field and things like that. Like I can be with my grief when my grief shows up. It never shows up without some sort of intention, right? Either it's for me to address something that's going on with me, and to give me information, right? Because healing is a multifaceted layered thing when it comes down to the grief, when it comes down to hurt and healing, right? And so I have found that in those moments when my grief shows up, it's there to teach me something And then just like the wind, when it's done, I let it go, right? And then I step into the next moment. And what I found like 90% of the time was that someone else would come along to receive the message that I got from that moment before. And and so that's how I look at the world, so to speak, right? And for me, it's just a beautiful thing. It's a moment to moment thing. There's nothing, there's no time that's wasted. There's no such thing as bad days. You just have challenging moments, and it's requiring you to do one or two things: be a teacher or a student. And so either which way, you still carry that message for other people. So when we talk about individuals that do say that, and although those things may not have worked for them, is it possible that they could be carrying that message for you? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think so. I think so. I think at the core of everything, people do have good intentions. I think people get caught up, as you mentioned, maybe in the moment. And I do think they have that message. But the problem sometimes is every single person on this earth has had a bad experience with something. So their guard may be up temporarily. And then what could ultimately happen is we, in general, still going to add more value to the behavior of people versus what they say, because what they say can be misconstrued. And you're someone that works in grief, right? So you're well aware of this, how someone can try to show up to support you in their words, but their behavior doesn't match, and it leaves you wanting, it leaves you empty.
Right.
And then you have a choice to make, right? Like, do you continue to believe what this person is saying and ignoring what they're doing, or do you start to believe what this person is doing and ignore what they're saying? And I think that is a harder decision to make, because sometimes walking away from someone who isn't walking the talk and just talking to talk can be difficult, because a lot of times it's someone that's close to us in one or more ways. So I think there's always going to be that hesitation to trust what someone is saying, because a lot of people's actions are contrary to what they're actually speaking of.
Right. And I want to add to that, because I totally agree with you. I guess for myself, I trust people till people give me a reason not to trust them, right? I listen to their words. I do, and I watch their actions, and sometimes their words and actions don't match, and you're absolutely correct. But you have a choice to practice discernment. And I think what happens a lot of times, and let me know what you think about this. What happens a lot of times, I think we spend more time trying to figure each other out, right? You know what I'm saying? I want to see how you react to what I say. You know what I'm saying? Are you going to react, or are you going to respond? I think, it becomes this chess game. And the reason being, from my own personal experience, you're right. We all have been hurt by something, by life. Life be lifing, man. You know what I'm saying? Life has a strange way of coming back and giving you a couple right hooks and a left hook and an uppercut, right? Maybe even throw in a leg sweep and a body slam. We never know, right? It depends on what you're going through. And so I am guilty of this myself. I often don't know what people's intentions for me are. So I do. When I come in, once before I even have a conversation with somebody in person, I'm already 20 steps ahead. I've already analyzed 150 directions that this conversation can go. It all depends on what you say and how you move, right? And that helps me keep myself safe. Helps me keep myself safe. Then I can make a choice. I can make an educated choice whether or not if I want to stay around you or if I want to leave. So I never rush anything that doesn't need to be rushed. I'm not trying to impress you. I am always going to be me, no matter what it is. And I'm constantly growing. But I think the problem is, like as I mentioned before, we often don't know what other people's intentions for us are. And it makes us very timid in a way, very protective. And so I think that could be one of the biggest things when it comes down to it. It's practicing discernment and things like that. And trust me, it helped me keep my circle very small because, I don't want to ever not give someone a chance to, what I'm saying? Maybe they're trying to figure me out too. Maybe they're trying to see if I am who I say I am. Maybe, what I'm saying? Just maybe life has shown them some different things as well. And so, it's like, okay, well, let's play this, play this thing out. Let's do this waltz and see how well we dance together. Maybe we trip up over each other. Maybe it's a beautiful melody. You never know. But I think we have to we have to practice discernment and knowing when someone is not good for you and when people are good for you. When people are seasonal or long term, right? And again, I'm only speaking from my point of view. I can't speak from other people, so I'll never put that on anyone else and say this is the way it's supposed to be. This is just what works for me, right? And it helps me stay genuine to who I am without doing damage in the process of my healing.
So it's like it reminds me of like the bear versus man conversation that a lot of women have online, right?
Right.
The bear, they know what to expect, whereas the man, because there's variables, they don't know what to expect. So if a bear walks into the room, there's two things that can happen, right? The bear could attack them, the bear won't attack them. When a man enters a room, and this is from the woman's perspective, is that they don't know. Is a man going to attack them? Is he going to love them? Is he going to hate them? Is he going to pretend? There's all these variables in the equation of trying to figure it out. But the question I ask people is, how do you not know what to expect from someone that you're communicating with? Right? Like, so if I'm married I'm in a relationship, but if I was married, how is it that I can't predict certain behaviors of my wife? Right? Like that's a question people have to ask themselves, right? Like I'm communicating with her every day. I'm around her every day. I'm observing her every day. So I know, for example, that if I were to walk into the house and leave my shoes just scattered across the floor, that may irritate her or may not irritate her. That's the power of observation. Now, I could maybe be on social media and like certain pictures or look at certain content that triggers her to a time where she was emotionally abused because someone was paying more attention to women online than her. Through communication, I could understand that and I can expect certain behaviors if I were to do that.
Right.
So when someone tells me that they're trying to figure people out, I totally get that. Yes, we are trying to figure people out, but we're not that complicated. We all want to be loved. We want to be happiness. We don't want to be hurt. So all we have to do is figure out what causes those three things. So when someone says that I don't know what upsets my partner, I'm like, have you asked? No, they're supposed to tell me. I'm like, okay, so he's not going to volunteer the information. You're not going to ask. You both are in a situation where it's an unstoppable object trying to hit the immovable force.
Right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
So at what point do we become adults and we say, hey, as kids, we're taught how to speak, but as adults, we have to learn how to communicate. Tony, are you all right? If I speak this way, are you fine with that? You know what, Terraine? Yeah, you're perfectly fine. Okay, Tony, if I swear, are you upset with that? You know what, Terraine? I really don't like the profanity because I try to maintain a professional situation. I know what to expect. So if I were to drop F-bombs, I know your reaction, and I can't be surprised because we had a conversation. Now, if I'm surprised, it's because I didn't care that you told me it. And that's a whole different conversation.
Right. Okay. I totally agree. Like, I totally agree on that. Now, I want to add a different perspective to it as well. And this is something that again, I'm only speaking from my perspective, what I'm saying, from the things that I've learned about me. I can't speak for no one else. One thing that I realized about me after going through and having to analyze and break down the different types of relationships that I've had that didn't work. there was a pattern. There was the main component, which was me, right? And I had to be accountable. So I thought to myself, maybe I'm the toxic one because I didn't do any healing to be in said relationships, right? But then as time went on, as I began to analyze it, it dawned on me that I was the seasonal one. My life has always required me to move from place to place, to be around different people at different times in their lives. And then when it was time for me to go, I left. And that's the way my life has always been. So I break that down in the course of my journey, being homeless, right? And all of those different things. When I went to prison, I look at that part as I just needed a break. But even in prison, I was doing the same thing. And so, and as time went on, I realized it really, really dawned on me. And the reality was, I am not the one to be attached to people, places, or things. Because I am the seasonal one, I do grief work. There's men out there that I work with, and I always find myself in the space with these men. My gift is not mine. Just like this life is not mine. I'm a servant. I'm a servant of my community. And I'm okay with that. But it also binds me to the rules of respect, right? So when I do meet people, I have to listen to the conversation that we have. Are you here for me or are you here for my gift? 98% of the time, they're here for my gift. So now that puts up a whole new barrier or boundary. I have to set a boundary. We're okay here. We just can't cross this level. And I'm respectful in that way. I don't not have the right to take advantage of you just because you feel as if, you know what I'm saying? Just because you feel attracted to me, right? That's what I call trauma bonding. I do understand that aspect. I understand that. And so at that point, I can make a choice and I just choose the right one. I choose not to take advantage. I choose to be there to give you what you need, let you take from me what you need. But I can love you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I'm just not allowed to love you physically. That is not mine. Because I don't never want to play the villain in your story. I want us to have a great friendship and let the time that we're together be meaningful, insightful, educational, filled with love, laughter, right? And maybe some healing that you can take from me. That way you can be good for the person that you are meant to be with. So, but again, I only speak from my perspective. And I know there's other people out there like that, which reminds me, how did you get into the work that you do, man? Because I love having this conversation. You see, this is just great. How did you get into? Tell people about your story, man, about your journey.
Yeah, well, similar to you, I had no idea what I was doing in my 20s. So I was broke. There's a period of time where I got kicked out of my parents' house and I had to go live from place to place. So I was without a permanent residence. I wouldn't say I was homeless because I wasn't living on the street, but I was without a home. I was without a house and a home, actually, because I truly believe there are two separate things. You can have a house and it's not a home, because the home is what makes you comfortable. And I was just struggling to make every type of relationship work, whether it was friendship, whether it was romantic relationship, whether it was at work. So what I ultimately did is I humbled myself. In a lot of ways, I think people need to. And I humbled myself before life humbled me. You made a fantastic point where you said that life will give you punches, will give you kicks, will give you leg sweeps. And I call that the combo of life. Life will hit you in all of your sensitive areas. So for a lot of people, that could be literally a kick in the nuts. Right? To some other people, it could be a slap across the face. To some other people, it could be, Your bank account went from a couple $1,000s to zero, and you have no idea. You had a miscarriage, someone passed away. Life will give you a combo that you're not prepared for, because the thing with life is undefeated. So for me, I humbled myself because I was seeing the writing forming on the wall. And what I did was I went out to people who are older than me, and I said, I'm looking for a serious type of friendship and relationship. I see that you're successful in it. What did you do? And they told me what they did. And then I said, okay, what is it that you looked for? They told me what they look for. And then I said, what is it that you had to offer for the people who are looking? And they told me that. I took a step back and I looked in the mirror that day and I said, Terraine, as of today, you are not good enough for anything that you want in life. And I paused. And I was near tears because I thought that I was the greatest thing in the world, like a lot of us, especially those people who grew up poor, who are surviving, not thriving, but they're surviving. From that day forward, Tony, I knew what I had to do, how I was going to do it, and why I was going to do it. And I made a friendly competition, and I said that everyone that is married, everyone that has good, strong relationships, everyone that is making an impact in life, they're the goal. Nothing is going to prevent me from getting to that goal, because I want to be at the point where someone comes to me and asks me, Terraine, how did you get this house? How did you impact the women who have been financially abused? How did, you know what's most important thing I've ever done? How did you get women who've been sexually abused, financially abused, physically abused, verbally abused, emotionally abused, to trust you, a man who's a reminder of their abuser? Right? Because remember, a lot of these women who've been abused by men, when they see me, they see a man.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how my journey started. And then when I got into the church and I started hearing the good word, that's when I was like, you know what, this is a gift from God himself that is given to me. He's like, you're destined to do much more than some of the silliness that people get caught up in. So that's how I started.
Okay. Wow, man. That is truly amazing, and it's truly a gift, man. It's truly a gift. I think when I hear you speak about that, I just think of the dynamics that's being changed, right? Because you made a decision to tap into those things, to ask those questions. And I think a lot of times, most people, I would say 90% of the people in the world, which leaves another 10%. And if you break that down, that gives the 1% of the people in the world who become successful, very successful in those different things. Most people are afraid to know what their true purpose is, because I mean, to be honest with you, I used to be one of those guys, right? I was one of those guys where I became successful at selling drugs, right? That's not something to brag about, but because I paid the price for it, right? You know what I'm saying? I became successful at doing many other things. I became successful at being homeless. That ain't something that you want to be, but I got good at it because it was a sense of survival. Until I realized there was more to it. And the reason why I say that, because you know what I'm saying, if when we think about those things, you either become good at something or you become really, really bad at something, right? And in those situations, those challenging situations when life was life and it just beating up on me, I knew how to pivot and survive. But I never had anyone teach me how to live. Never had anyone teach me how to live. That came a little bit later on in life, right? That came after losing the people that I love. And that's where I found the thing that I was supposed to do. And I realized, because with those losses left my fear of living. And then, like you said, I began to look at things and go, what if I tapped into this thing and saw where it took me? And now I just have fun, right? You know what I'm saying? Everything that I do, I have fun. No matter what it is, I may go out and I may fail 1,000 times, but I'm having fun doing it. Because it only takes me that one time to figure it out. And I can begin to put blocks into it and build upon it and see where it goes, right? But it took me a long time. And I think I stayed in my way for so long after those. And it was through pain and suffering that I found my purpose in that path that led me to where I am, talking with Terraine today.
Let me ask you a question, Tony. Do you remember what age you reached that point?
The point of not being afraid, or the point
Absolutely.
of 6. Well, and the reason being, and I say 6 because 6 is when my innocence was taken. And I realized then that no one was going to save me, that the world was full of people that was capable of hurting me. So the fear of dying left. It was no longer there. Now there's you know what I'm saying? The fear of living was there, because being in the world that I was in, it was like, I might want to get comfortable here, right? Because I'm already in poverty. I'm in the projects and things like that. So I might want to get comfortable here. But while I'm comfortable here, I'm going to have to become a megalodon in this whole sea of hammerheads and great whites. I'm going to have to become something bigger and a little bit more aggressive in order for me to survive. Right? And that's what it was like. But deep down inside, you know what I'm saying? As I got older, I realized that although I didn't have the fear of being that way, there was the fear of the unknown. So now when we talk about that switch around, I was 42 when it happened. 42 years old. And that's when everything began to happen. The losses, things like that. And I realized that in the world that I'm in, I'm alone again. So I had to begin to take that, and I had to stand on it. Why am I so afraid of this? It's not the first time that you've been alone. Well, this time is different. I can't pick up the phone and call mom anymore. I can't pick up the phone and call my dad anymore. I can't talk to my younger brother and tell him that I love him. I don't have the ability to pick up my son and hold him and tell him, Daddy got you anymore. Right? And that's where that fear dissipated as well. Because then that purpose came in, and I said, what if I use this in a way to make an impact in the community? And as you said, Terraine, that became my priority. That became my purpose, is to walk with those other men out there that have gone through something similar and maybe offer them a piece of me so they don't have to go through what I went through. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, I asked because I had a difficult childhood as well. And that's when I realized that, to your point, no one is coming to save me.
Mm-hmm.
But what I ultimately found as well is every time a friendship or relationship ended, I was grieving.
Mm.
Because a part of me was being changed, or a part of me died. So I'll give you an example. When I realized that I wasn't good enough for what I wanted, I was grieving that version of Terraine, because I knew I had to become better, stronger, faster, smarter, more successful, more refined. And during that process, people around me began to fall away. One, because it was taking me into an area that they couldn't follow. And two, it was taking me away from people that only wanted me to suffer in the misery and to be alone. So we talked about grief. I know previously you and I to this.
Yeah.
And I would say that what I've learned, I've had people pass away like they've left this earth. But looking back on my life, I've grieved more for the loss of people who have remained on this earth, because unfortunately I can't be around them for a number of reasons. And I think sometimes that grief gets ignored, because it's easier to identify when someone has passed away. There's a funeral, there's stuff like that. But how many of us do a celebration of evolution?
Okay.
Right? Versus like a celebration of life when someone passes. So, Tony, you've been through so much, from what you've told me. Was there like, have you celebrated some of the successes, and were you able to share it with others who were saying that, you know what? Yes, Tony, you're the new you. Like, you came from selling drugs, from being in prison. Now this Tony is an amazing person. Terraine, you came from not growing up with your parents, not having them. Now you're this person. Let's celebrate that life. I think we don't do enough of that until one of us has passes away. Then we list all the accomplishments and the accolades, and we want to give people their flowers.
I totally agree. And to elaborate a little bit more on your question there, life has humbled me, right? And I realized that, do I celebrate those little small wins and things like that for myself? I don't. I celebrate them for other people. And the reason being is because once I realized that this life that I have lived was never about me, it was about the gift that was being crafted inside of me. It made it easier for me to celebrate those who benefited from my gift. And that fulfilled me. And it makes me happy and fills me with joy to know that I helped someone. Not saying that I'm helping thousands of people across the world. I know we would like to think that and things like that to make a difference in it. And if I am, I'm okay with that. But I never really look at it that way, right? Because it's so much bigger than me. It's so much bigger than this little role that I play in this world. And I look at the ABCs and the XYZs that come along with it. How does it benefit them if I bring this to them and they're able to become better men for their significant others, for their friends, for their children, for their communities, how they show up in other people's worlds and things like that? Because you got to remember, I'm never around to see all of that right there. I'm temporary. I'm only here to give you what you need from me in hopes that you can take it and become a better version of yourself. Do I grieve the people that are around? Yeah, of course I do, man. You know how many people I've walked to their next destination and had to walk along my path and be alone for a while? But it got to a point to where it actually started to excite me. I was excited to see who you became as your journey took you where you needed to go. So, but I still grieve. I still grieve the friendship and things like that. But I think the excitement for your evolution, as you say, was more than was bigger than that. And again, I only speak from what I see and how I live my life. You know, I have no ill intentions towards anyone. I try to be honest. I try to, well, not try. I be honest. Um, I will love you and give you what you need. But when it's time for me to go, all I ask is that you don't have to fight with me in order to go on about your journey. It is yours. I will walk you there and then drop you off and go on about my own merry way. But I think a lot of times what happens, people do that to justify the pain that they feel of that person leaving, right? Because you never know the sort of relationships that you build as you walk along your path. But the thing is that, and I'm going to repeat it again. I do grieve those individuals, but this thing is so much bigger than me that I can't help but be happy and joyful to see you on your way.
So like the end result helps you to work through that grief of the friendships that maybe have changed, or maybe the friendships you've lost.
Yeah, the end result, right? The end result isn't mine, right? It's not mine, and that's what I mean. Like my life has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. So I know I don't take things personal. I don't have any sort of expectations out of this life or people. If you say this is who you are, I will believe you. I will believe that until you give me a reason not to. Then I will go. It's okay to um not have people around you that are not ready for you, right? You have to make sure that those people are ready for you. And in turn, they may come and get a taste to see how you are first, right? You know what I'm saying? And they may be like, I'm not ready for that just yet, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna have to go over here and marinate for a little bit. Maybe they gotta go do some work, but you've given them a taste of what it feels like to be appreciated, to have someone genuinely care about how you are. That is huge in this world, man. That is so huge that someone comes in and don't have any sort of intentions of doing you dirty, but have every intentions of seeing you do better than me. And I think that's where I get my kicks in, because I love to see people doing better than me. I do, right? Because I mean, our time here is very limited, very limited. It's not like we're going to live 100 years and things like that. And so when I could see somebody going out there, if I could set the bar high, and you can look at me and be inspired and go, you know what, Tony, I see what you're doing. I'm going to do better than that. I tell them all the time, do it, please. Because when I'm gone, you'll be the one to have to take over where I left off at. So if I know that you're striving to be better than me, I know that I've taken the one important step into leaving the world better than what I found it.
I spoke to your point, I spoke to someone a couple of weeks ago about that, and they truly and strongly believe that the source of your inspiration doesn't come from other people, it comes from yourself. And you have to learn to cultivate that within, because you really can't pull it out from anyone else. And
Right.
her and I, we were talking about that, and I shared that, what if someone were to pull up something one day? Let's say they went on YouTube or they're walking down the street and they saw an amazing act of service. Wouldn't they feel something from that, regardless of how their day is? Or is it that the person is so upset, so disenfranchised, that it doesn't really matter? They can be upset, they can see someone save a mother, father, and their child from a burning house, and they're like, okay, my day's still bad. And I challenged her and I said that I don't think that's true. I think what has happened with a lot of people is we get so caught up in ourselves that we minimize and diminish the positivity that's out there.
Mm.
And when I speak to people about grief, I see this sometimes because grief is such a difficult thing to deal with, that when they're working themselves through it, there's a lot of emotions. And people are going to come out to support that aren't really the best of people or have the best of intentions. And it's easier sometimes for us to surround ourselves with as many people as possible, because we can pull from all these different types of energy.
Mm. Yes.
But pulling from negative or dark energy isn't going to benefit you because it's all going to just dim your energy. So sometimes it is tough to handle the emotions that you're going through when you're grieving the friendships that you lost or the people that you've lost. Is human nature is to surround yourself. And sometimes people get overwhelmed with such loneliness in their grief that they can't maybe see what is actually happening to them. And I think we touched on this previously. And I said that if you're grieving and you have a family, you have a wife, you're a husband, you have a kid, the longer you grieve, the longer you're taking yourself away from those people, your family. So now not only are you grieving, they're grieving the loss of a parent, a
Right.
spouse, right? So eventually someone in that family is going to begin to look outside of the family for support. So because they're grieving the loss of their parents or their spouse. If the husband is grieving and the wife looks outside of her home into the arms of another man, what happens there? There's a lot of bad things that could happen. If the child is grieving because their parent isn't there for them in the way they want to be there for them, where they usually turn. And you and I have experienced this, to the streets.
Right.
So it's difficult to stay balanced when you're grieving. But I think a lot of people who are in a relationship or have a family have to understand sometimes that your grief is fine. The emotions are fine. It's okay not to be okay. But unfortunately, there's going to be people who are still going to look to you to be you, or at least a version of you while you're going through this. And if you completely shut down, you're impacting other people who now they're grieving the loss of their husband, the loss of their wife, or the change of that relationship. Or you're looking at the child who's grieving the loss of their parents. Like, I couldn't imagine having a child and I'm grieving and my child comes up to me. They said, "Hey mom, hey dad, I got straight A's. I did it for you." And I turn to them and I say, "Oh, that's nice. Not now. I'm still sad." Like, we forget how that could impact another person. Like, you're entitled to how you're gonna feel, but sometimes we have to take a step back and say, I'm grieving, yes, but I still need to bring my family into my world because they were a part of my world before this. They should be a part of my world during this, and they most definitely want them to be a part of my world after it.
Okay. Question, then I'm going to elaborate on what you said, because there's, I always, again, when it comes down to grief, this is one of those things I'm in love with, right? You know what I'm saying? And there's always those other different variables that people don't really think about. And big shout out to Rachel over here. I think we both know Rachel. She's the one who introduced us. She just put this up here. Rachel, thank you for being up here as always, for your support, and thank you for the introduction with Terraine. As you see, this is a beautiful conversation, and big shout out to her as well. She did a logo for me, which you guys will see on the when I start doing it, when I bring it up here. Guys, reach out to her. She is freaking amazing, and I'm so happy to have met her. Now, to what you were saying, my question would be, because this knowledge comes from lived experience, right? It comes from lived experience. What was the loss that you experienced that gave you that wisdom that you now carry and speak about?
Yes. So I had a friend that passed away. I work at a bank, and he works at a branch. We work for the same bank. He's a friend of mine, and when he passed away, he collapsed in front of everyone at the bank, customers, everything, and died right there. So this was in another part of the country that I live in. And I would turn to my girlfriend at that time for support. And her way of dealing with the support was to offer her body. It was for sex. So a little bit of background for me. Transactional sex means nothing to me. I've always been able to, I've been very good at penis management, as they say. So I'm not running around here slinging and swinging.
That's a good thing, right?
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. No children as well. So I'm good. So when she did that, it was a little offensive, but I understood where she came from. So I didn't really hold it against her. But that happened. And then in another situation, I had someone pass away, and I went to this person, girlfriend at the time as well. And I said, hey, I really need you at this time. Can we set up a time and a day for us to communicate? She said, yes. I had to drive 6 hours to the city of this funeral. So I got in about maybe just before midnight. I said, hey, I'm home. Are we still good for tomorrow? I said, yes. She said, yes. So tomorrow comes, day and time comes. She says, okay, I'm just waking up. I'm just going to go shower. Then we're going to go speak, because I was at the funeral. I looked at the message, but I didn't respond because I was at the funeral. So the time comes now, nothing. Hour goes by, 2 hours go by, 5 hours go by, nothing happens. So now I'm a little disappointed and I'm upset because I'm experiencing all these emotions. My aunt passed away, right? So later on in the day, I end up just checking my social media at the time, and I come across something from her where she was in like this text group, like, where they can text on the phone, during the time that I was supposed to talk to her about what I was going through. So I felt let down by this person because now this is twice. She was aware of the previous time, and I communicated that to her. I was like, hey, we're supposed to meet. Like, I needed you at this point in time, and you were doing something that could have waited, right? Like the death, I can't postpone the funeral or the death, right? So she was like, well, you didn't text me back. I'm like, but that wasn't the agreement. The agreement was that we're going to meet at this time. So as I was driving back, I was upset at the situation. She was calling me, and I was like, I'm not really ready to talk. So in both of those situations, I did what I think a lot of people are educated to do, is that you go first to your partner. But now when your partner lets you down, where else can you go? Right? So because of when it happened, I was a little bit more educated than I was in my 20s. And I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to handle it on my own. I'm going to calm myself down. I'm going to work through my emotions with these people and then reconnect with them, instead of me going outside to a female friend, to a male friend, to wherever, because I've seen that happen with my friends, where they've gone to another friend, and what turns out is that that friend was a friend in waiting. And for the men and the women out there, we know who that friend is. That friend is the person that sometimes they say inappropriate things about your relationship. It may be a friend that has said things that are maybe borderline, where you start to question, okay, is this person really my friend, or they have an interest? Right? Like, I've seen people go to that friend and then bad things happen because that friend would give them the advice of, well, just leave the person. It's not enough to leave, right? Whatever it is you're going through, whoever has passed away, just because the person wasn't there for you at that minute or that moment, I believe, isn't enough to end the relationship. So for me, just because they weren't there at that exact moment when I needed them, it was enough for me to raise it as a point of conversation, but it wasn't enough for me to end the relationship. So that's where I get the wisdom from, because I've seen what some of the people who are acquaintances do. And I've been through it myself, where I said, okay, they weren't here for me today, but I know they're going to be here for me tomorrow. And both of them were here for me tomorrow, because once I had the conversation of what I needed, which I think, and you could probably touch on this, Tony, which I think a lot of people are missing. They don't communicate what they need. Then they showed up in the way that I showed up, and then things were better. But it was difficult for me to work through, because you have the grief emotions and then you have the disappointment emotions all at the same time. So that's where I got the wisdom from.
Okay. And that's great. I'm going to add to that as well, right? Because I love that you touched on the friend in waiting, and the disappointment and things like that. So in grief, the thing about it is, Terraine, is that there's no right or wrong way to do it, right? You're going to have people walk away from you. You're going to have people that come into your life, and it's all okay. All of that is okay, right? Because everybody's always dropping off something to you as you're going through the process. It's what you need in those moments that you need it the most. Sometimes people don't know how to handle, and you're absolutely correct, the emotional aspect that come along with loss. Men especially, and some women I'm starting to find as well, like it's universal across the board. The thing is, not everybody knows how to define those emotions. So it's really difficult to communicate to you what I need if I don't know what I need. Right? And it's okay. It's okay. You can learn these things over time about what you need. Maybe you just need to sit alone. Maybe you need to get some rest. And it's all good. It's okay. Maybe you don't need to talk to anyone right now. Maybe you just need somebody to show up and just be in your space with you, just to be there. Maybe you need somebody to come and cook you a meal and watch a sad movie with you while you cry, while you try to figure out this thing as you begin to grow and move through this thing called grief.
So, Tony, are you saying that I should have took the sex?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, right? Because you know what I'm saying. I'm not going to say it was the wrong thing to do or the right thing to do. I mean, it's a very physical and can be a loving thing. It all depends on the individual and your mindset as well. Maybe that's all they had to offer. Think about that for a minute. Maybe that's all they had to offer was that. Maybe it's because their whole entire life, that was the way that they was always shown affection. You slept with me, so you must feel something for me. So in the same sense, these are the tools that they have to work with. They only work if they're only using what they have, you know what I'm saying, because that's what they have. It's all a matter of, you know what I'm saying, how are you looking at the situation? Maybe it's because that individual don't know how to talk neither. This is the way they communicate. Their love language to them is that physical touch. And they're going, if I give you physical touch, I'm loving on you. I'm at least going to help take away this burden that you're feeling right now. And afterwards, we're going to spoon, right? It don't matter, you know what I'm saying? Do you want to be big spoon or little spoon, right? You know what I'm saying? Come on, let's figure this thing out, right?
Well, may I add, please, Tony?
So when you think about it that way, right? This thing called grief, man, it's so in depth that it's like an octopus. It has many arms. It has many arms, and those arms, you never know which arm is touching you at the moment that it's touching you. Now, I'm sure one of the incidents that I had when my son passed away. I was with a girl at the time when he passed away. We had just got back together too. And when my son passed away, I kind of stayed with her over the summer. It's about 6 months or so, but I still have my own place. And I remember we were sitting down talking, and again, I don't know what I need. I'm compiling all of these different things. I'm just doing right now, walking, stumbling, falling. Don't know whether if I want to cry, scream, rip my head off, whatever. Right? This is grief. It's messy. I do remember what she said to me though, because I was sitting there And I was caught up in this memory of my son, and I was breaking down. Now, I thought I was comfortable. I thought I was in a safe space. I was proven wrong. She looked at me. She goes, "It's been 6 months. You should be over it." I said, "Okay, not a problem." I can't fault her for what she said. Did it hurt? Yeah, because she was someone that I felt safe with. Then she realized I wasn't safe anymore. That's the way she made me feel. And I can say that now. And we're still friends to this day. You know, we still love her with all my heart. She's a good woman, very good woman. But I realized right then and there that this grief thing was about to take me for a ride. And it did. And so, but that was the door that opened up to where I left. And then I began that solo journey of understanding grief, or beginning to tap into the many dangers of grief. Because shortly after that, I lost everything. I lost my company. I lost my place. I lost everything. All I had was a car and my clothes, right? You know what I'm saying? And I made really bad decisions. Really bad decisions. Darn. And I thought to myself, this is not going to beat me. Terraine, this thing whooped me and threw me all around. It was like the Hulk throwing around Spider-Man. This thing had me bouncing around and swinging me like a little lasso, tossing me across the world and coming and drop kicking me around. It was taking me on a gravity loop, okay? You know what I'm saying? He kicked me in an orbit and then brought me back. It was bad. It was so bad, right? But that was the grief though, right? And then I found myself, because I didn't realize how bad it was beating me until I was sitting out in the middle of the desert, about ready to take my life. I was that close. 2 seconds away. All I had to do was squeeze the trigger. It would have been done. And in that moment, my saving grace was God. And that's when God helped me realize that my life was so much bigger than me. And that's when I began to put the pieces together about grief. And over a period of time, I began to fall in love with it. And because of the people I started meeting, right? You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh my God. Now I was so excited, I didn't know what to do with myself, right? You know what I'm saying? Because now I get to share this thing, and I don't know where the knowledge came from. I don't know where the wisdom came from. Lived experience took me to a certain point, but the things that I was thinking about and coming up with was so much further and bigger than me. Then finally, I had to stop the excitement. I had to learn to slow myself down. And once I began to do that, I began to respond to things and not react. Then I was able to separate the emotion from the situation and keep that in check. And that's where my understanding of it had came from. And that's why when you talk about you know what I'm saying, the girl that you was with, where she offered sex and this, that, and that, that's why I say I understand. I get it. It's what she had to offer. That was her way of showing love, because that's the only way that she has ever been showing love, not through communication. That's why she didn't answer you back, because if you would have broke down and started talking to her, she probably wouldn't even know how to respond to it. Although you in your grief, in that journey, you knew what you needed. You knew what you needed. You needed to speak. And now reverse it. Most men, when women are ready to talk, most men do what? They walk away. Does it sound familiar? It's just on the other end of the spectrum. So we cannot have both. We cannot have one without the other. And there comes a deep embedded understanding that, you know, when you think about it. And it's opening up the doors to have that understanding. that, hey, just because you was ready to talk doesn't mean that she was ready to talk. She has a perception of you. Just like most people will call you Superman. Think about that. The people that look up to you think that you're invincible. And the last thing that they want to see is you hurting and them not being able to do anything for you. So what they do is that they try to get you to a place to where they feel comfortable. And what I mean by that, they only know you as Superman.
I agree. In that first example I gave, as the relationship continued, I realized that is all that she has to offer.
Yes.
It was unfortunately in her relationship toolbox. It was the main tool, if not the only tool.
Yeah.
What I have found in my lived experience, as well as the women that I work with, is that the women that are detached in that way, similar to the men that are, it's a very masculine behavior. Right? And what you'll find is a man that is not able to tap into his feminine to understand what his woman needs is a man that is always living in his masculine. That's why he's the man that walks away. Honey, I need to talk to you. This is what's going on. I feel sad. Okay, go talk to your girls about that. Or they walk away, they turn off because they're not able to tap into their feminine. Now, the women that I deal with, the ones that are not able to talk to their men about their emotions or their understanding, they're always in their masculine frame because they will say things like, it's been 6 months. You should be over this. Whereas you get a woman who is soft in nature, who's understanding in nature, who lives more in her feminine, she's going to know that you're still suffering. I gave you the example seems like a couple of weeks ago, but wasn't that long?
I know, right? It was just a
right?
week ago.
Yeah, where it was many women would know exactly how to soothe their child. Right? So you can soothe the child with what? The pacifier, with communication, just by holding them, just letting them soothe, right? But they're not able to take that same skill set. Some women are not able to take that same skill set and apply it to their partners. We all need to be soothed. Yes, we're past the pacifier stage.
Depending on your pacifier.
Depending on your pacifier, right? But the universal hug. Imagine you're going through your grief, right? Instead of the woman you're dating saying you should be over it after 6 months. Imagine she walked up to you and she said, Tony, I wanted to talk to you for a minute. And you said, yeah, honey, what is it? And she gives you a hug. She's like, I just want to hug and hold you. And she says, you're a great man. You've been through a lot. You're still out here working hard, impacting lives. Imagine how you would have felt if you heard that instead of what you heard. Imagine the women out there who came from a long day, who are trying to balance being a wife, being a girlfriend, being a mother. And they're like, my friend has died. He was like a brother to me. And the husband walks up and says, you know what? I see you working very hard to maintain this household. This is what I want to do for you. I want you to sit here and tell me exactly how you're feeling, because I want to make sure that when you walk the path, I'm right there beside you. We are going to remain evenly yoked, regardless of the burdens that you're carrying and regardless of how light the burden that I am, because your burden is my burden. When your shoulders are too weak to carry on, I have two right here for you to lean on. Imagine that type of conversation. And I think that's where it takes effect, because masculine energy and feminine energy is a thing that exists, and I strongly believe that. It's your ability to what are you going to live in and what you're going to tap in. A man lives in his masculine and has to be able to tap into his feminine. A woman who lives in her feminine has to be able to tap into her masculine. When people are living in their opposite energy, they're unbalanced, not aligned. So that's why you have these kind of reactions. Because let's be honest, The expectation is a man is supposed to tell the woman, I'll make you feel better. Let me give you some of this dick. That's what a man would say, right? Like if you were to take 10 people and you gave them that saying, 9 out of 10 people will say that, oh, a man said that. Now, if you were to tell them, no, it came from a woman, they'll be surprised because there's still that perception, right, of it. Now, we need to do a lot of work, and you've mentioned that, as individuals, because I 100% agree that we don't know what the other person wants. And I think a lot of times the reason why we don't know is we don't talk about it. And some of us don't really care. When it comes to grief, there's some people that you're on a stopwatch. Tony, it's been 6 months, man.
Yeah.
Like, can we get back to normal? Terraine, it's been 3 months. Like, what's going on? It's like, no, like I'm still Terraine. He's still Tony. But we're a version of what we used to be. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
Right. And now it's our duty as a person grieving to be able to tap into those and continue forward. But if the person is beating us down, while life is beating us down, you can't go to work to find peace. You can't go home to find peace. So this is where the pills, the barrel of a gun, and some other things look like a way of peace, because you have nowhere else to go to find the peace. So I can understand why men suffer a suicide at the rate that they do. I can understand why there's a disconnection between men and women. But if we can't open our ears and close our mouth, how are we ever going to be able to open our hearts?
Very true. Very true. And those are really good things right there. And you're absolutely correct on all of that. You're absolutely correct on all of that. I'm going to add some stuff in there to do, you know what I'm saying? And these are things that people can put in there too, Bells. Please, he's not wrong on any of this. The communication is key. The problem with the communication Terraine is that understanding the language that's being spoken. When you talk about the masculine and feminine energy, that's two different love languages right there. It's totally two different love languages. When men grieve, it's a foreign love language that no one speaks. But if you and I were surrounded in a room with other men that have gone through similar things, we have terminologies that we use that help us understand what we're going through. Like if I come up to you and say, for instance, you just lost someone. Terraine, how you doing? You may be like, I'm all right. I understand what you just said right there. Hey man, you know what I'm saying? You want to sit down? Yeah, for a little bit. You want to go grab something to eat? Yeah, I can eat a little bit right now. Right? You understand? See, it's a foreign love language that no one speaks, and so it's understanding that language. Now, here's where I opened up open the doors for both sides, right? So when women they're in their feminine energy, you said one vital thing. And I want to elaborate on that. When women is in their feminine energy, when that man is grieving, she is so used to taking care of the boy, her child, because she's a nurturer. Sometimes it's hard to differentiate the child from the man because of the roles that we play in each other's world. And because the man is protector and provider, hers is the nature of the nurture, right? So depending on the pacifier, as I mentioned before, depending on the pacifier, is how that is going to play itself out. A lot of times it's hard to separate the two. So you can't do the nurturing thing that you did with the young boy with the grown man. It's really hard. And so that's where I add in this aspect of it. It's okay to step over here and be around people that you can relate to for a little bit, just so you can get a breather. You can still be in your same role, right? But Step over here be around other women that can speak life into you. Because you may not be getting that from me at this time. And I may not be getting that from you at this time. Be around other men who've gone through similar things. So they can speak life into you. They know the language to speak. They've gone through similar things. They know that you're not being judged by them. Right? Let them give you a piece of them to help you stand and be able to breathe just another day, maybe just another moment. And then when you're strong enough and you develop some communicative skills, then you slowly walk back into each other. How you doing, baby? I can't apologize for being so distant. There were so many things I needed to learn, but when you're ready, I would like to talk to you about what was going on with me. And I do say I appreciate you for being in my corner and allow me the space to be able to go and be supported. This terminology reigns true every which way but loose. As iron sharpens iron, women sharpen women, men sharpen men. That is important because those men that have gone through something similar have some skills that you haven't quite developed just yet. You got to remember, grief changes your world, changes your perspective of how you see the world. And that's okay. It's how you show up in the world that's now presented to you. And how do you incorporate everything else just with this different perspective? It's okay. Like there's no right or wrong way to do it. That's why I'm not saying that this is wrong. No, you're absolutely correct on everything that you said. Just open up the doors to have a different understanding of the world that's just now changed on you, right? And just maybe the person that you're becoming, because you're different. And that's the beautiful part about grief. It's designed to help you become a different version of yourself with a deeper understanding. And you may have to go through some things, man. You may have to look, you may get hooked on drugs. It's okay. Make sure you got somebody there with you so when you hit your version of rock bottom, you got somebody there to, give you a shoulder and tell you, come on, man. I see you. Make sure every time you got somebody there every time you go through that hurricane or that tornado, that grief tornado, that you get kicked out, that you got somebody there that looks at you and go, take a deep breath. Let's sit down here. Let's rest for a minute and wipe your forehead. But you got to go back in there because I need you to come back out on the other end. I'm going to be there with you every step of the way. You dig what I'm saying? Whether if it's your significant other, your child, or friends, family, whatever, right? Make sure you got that one individual that won't interfere. And I mean this wholeheartedly, and it's going to sound crazy when I say this. You need that one person who is not going to interfere in your evolution of grief, but allow you to go through that storm. But be there when that person is there when they need you the most, or when you need them the most. Not to take away, but to wipe that sweat off your head. Maybe help dust your knees off. Maybe sit down with you. Go, whoo, man, it's really rough up in there. Because what happens as over time, as that thing begin to turn, you begin to pick apart these pieces. The healing starts. Now the storm is starting to dwindle a little bit. And you're going to come out the other side, beaten, battered, and bruised. But you're going to come out the other side, and that's the point of it. The drugs, the alcohol, the homelessness, all of these different things you're going to experience. Let's not kid ourselves. This is the human experience. And this is how we learn to be better human beings. And that is how we learn to have the mindset of showing up and being present with other people because of that experience. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
You gotta learn how to pivot in those moments, not only in your life, but in other people's lives. Right. And if there's something that you don't know, ask the world, ask God, hey, I really fumbled this over here. Is there anything that I can do better that you could teach me so I don't keep fumbling and doing this, and life has a strange way of coming back and going, yes, let me give you some more skills, right? And then
Yeah, life is so undefeated.
right, it's undefeated.
Yeah.
Life is honest. Think about that for a minute. It is us as human beings that put expectations on life and then get disappointed when life switches up on us, right? Life didn't promise us anything. Life is not fair. It's not unfair. It is very, very truthful. It says if you show up today, and if you show up today, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to throw some things at you and see how you react or respond to it. It's your choice.
Let me ask you, Tony, like for me, when I go through grief, and like I look at like the most two recent examples I gave, and look in some of my relationships, friendships, and otherwise, I looked at it as, back to my earlier question, where it's like in celebration of evolution. I look at it as a celebration of life. So that has helped me to minimize the negative impact of grief.
Mm-hmm.
But when I observe, like, and I look at the people who attended the funeral, and they called it celebration of life. So it was highlighting all of the accomplishments of these people.
Right.
Right. I've been to funerals where they speak about the struggles. They speak about the other side of it. And I find that those people take longer to get through it than those who are celebrating what the person did positively versus the people who celebrate maybe the darker side of that person. So, for example, they'll say that this person struggled with drug addiction, this person was an alcoholic, this person was this. It's unfortunate they passed away because maybe they sought help. That's how they present the package of that person's final moments on this earth before they hit the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Versus when it's a celebration of life, or the approach I take is, Tony was a good man. He did this. He accomplished that. Like, look at all these things. Look at the book. Look at the work he's done with other people. Look at all these highlights. And I've taken the sadness and I have evolved it in a way to happiness, to celebration.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been my approach dealing with grief. And I found that I've been able to work through it better,
Mm-hmm.
more efficiently, versus those who maybe focus only on not on the person's accomplishments, but their struggles. And
Mm-hmm.
now they always remember the struggles. And when you ask them, and I've done this as a test, tell me something that the person accomplished. Tell me like something they've done, like let's remember them in this way. And they struggle to remember some of the greatness of that person. And then it brings into question, if this person, and this is not to say that they don't deserve celebration as well, or grieving period, but if you only remember the person lesser than, how are you going to get other people to acknowledge the impact when you haven't been able to demonstrate or at least explain the impact of this person when you're really only speaking to them in a lesser than positive light?
Mm-hmm. Great question. And very simple answer: relationship. People will often speak upon someone else according to the relationship that they have, right? So, although, like, you may have a beautiful relationship with that individual, understand the accomplishments that they had, on the other end, this person may have had bad experiences with this individual, but it's the relationship that they have with them. So that's all they know. It's nothing personal. It's nothing personal, right? They only speaking from the perspective of what they've seen and the experience that they have with this individual. Doesn't mean that they love them anything less. It just means that their human experience with this person was different from yours, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. This is again the way that they're expressing their love is to talk about the things that the experiences that they have. Maybe they didn't have the opportunity to see those accomplishments. Maybe that person moved on long after that. And I say that to say this: there's going to be people in my life when I pass away that's not going to talk really good about me. They're not. Because at the time that they met me, I was a totally different beast. At the time when you meet me now, I am the person that this thing has turned me into. Life experiences has given me a chance to do something better. So when it comes down to it, no, don't take that away from them. You can argue with them all you want, but this is all they know. They knew me as the game banger, as the crip that walked around fighting and robbing people and shooting at people and going in and out of jails and stuff like that. This is what they know. And to them, that was the most exciting part of the life that they had with me. Right? You know what I'm saying? I was that dude. I was that guy, right? You know what I'm saying? Hey, when it came down to it, we are on the block. We got to do some things. Then we're going to go do some things. Right? You know what I'm saying? There's going to be women out there that come and go, oh, he was such an asshole. He was a cold-hearted piece. There's going to be women that come to you and go, man, he was the best thing that ever happened to me. There's going to be people now that's going to come and go, I am so glad that I met Tony. I became those different versions of myself in this life because that's what was required of me in order for me to be and have this human experience that I'm having now. So going back to what I said, relationships. And we have no right to take that away from them, although it may sound strange to us. This is their experience.
Would you have a funeral when you pass away?
No.
See, I'm the same way, and I wonder, is it because of our training?
Well, I'm also a death doula, right? And one of the things that I've always said, I don't want a funeral because where I am going to be when I pass away, I still have my son's ashes. I'm going to plant a tree. I'm going to put his ash. I'm going to plant the tree over top of my son's ashes. That's my last gift to him in this world, so he can live on far after I'm gone. And it's going to take a while for people to find me, and I prefer it that way. Remember me the way that I was. Don't interfere with nature. Let the animals have me. I'm dead. It doesn't really matter. It's the circle of life. Maybe I can give them something, right? Don't worry about all of that. Don't worry about it. So no, I don't need a funeral. I really prefer not to have a funeral because I want you to celebrate the friendship that we had, the relationship, the bond, and things like that we have. And I don't ever want to add sorrow into your life because that's not what I stand for.
See, I want it planned out as well. I want to be cremated, and I want it to be a celebration of life. I don't want the funeral. I don't want people to gather to be sad that I'm gone.
Right.
I want people to gather to celebrate that I'm in a place where, depending on how I passed away and why, I'm in a better place. The way I look at death is that you go from existing physically, like you and I today, and then you get changed and you evolve into living emotionally and mentally. So you live in a person's heart, in their mind. So I believe you're not ever truly gone. It's just your physical body may be,
right,
but your spirit, your essence is always there. So I don't want people to mourn or be sad that I'm gone. I want them to celebrate that I've evolved into my next state.
Right. Yes, and I totally agree. You know, mine's is just a little bit different. I've been such a loner my whole entire life that my one gift would be what I leave you through conversations that we've had. My passing is mine. I would rather walk off, sit under my tree, take my last breath while I'm talking to my son, maybe overlooking a cliff, looking at the ocean, right? And maybe on some beautiful exotic island. These are things that people don't know about me, right? You know what I'm saying? Maybe I already have these things. And when the time comes, I go there and I'll sit there and I'll look across the cliff and to the ocean, because my son had never been to the ocean before. So that is my gift to him. Son, this is my gift. Look at this view. This is yours for the rest of your life. And I want to spend my last moments with him. And I'm okay with that. I would rather walk off into the darkness without a trace, without a goodbye, without the tears, and just kind of fade off into the sunset. You know? That way, I know that you're good.
Remember me as I was, not as I am.
Yeah. You know? We all got to pass someday. And it can be a beautiful thing. It can be a beautiful thing. Now, again, these are just my my thoughts on how I would like to go. Just kind of fade on.
Because you can that's probably the one area you can control. As you mentioned earlier, like you can't control when someone's met you and their perception of you, right? But you can control the Tony today. You can control the Tony tomorrow. And you had control over the Tony of yesterday. It's just we all have made decisions that maybe rub some people the wrong way. But once we became, I know for me, once I became educated in how my behavior impacts people, I chose to do better. And I chose to make sure that I put distance between myself and people where it could potentially go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that goes back to what I mentioned earlier about grieving. I had to grieve that person because that person was dysfunctional in many ways. That person was screaming for attention in many ways. That person was just trying to understand where their place in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I was fortunate, Tony, that I experienced that realization young in my 20s, right? I'm still an adult. If I was later on in life, I don't think I would have had what I had because of how far I had to climb up to get there.
Exactly.
Right? So
yeah, exactly.
I think that's a good part to mention about the grieving periods, because when you're climbing out of it, some people, their climb is 6 feet. Some people's climb is 6,000 feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But once you climb out of it and you stand and that sun is beaming on your face and you look back and you're like, look at what I accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
I did it with you. I did it with you. I did it with you. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I did it without you, but that's okay because you know what? You still taught me something.
Yes.
Right? That's the way I look at things. So when I gave the examples about the two women, I don't fault them because I learned something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All I did was I repositioned what I wanted and it worked out. I could have held on to that and been bitter.
Well, yeah.
Right? But instead of being bitter, I chose to be beautiful.
and a beautiful individual you became. Right?
Absolutely.
We got a comment up here from Rachel. Do you guys believe in the afterlife? I'm gonna let you answer it, then I'm going to elaborate on it a little bit.
Oh, me first.
yeah, definitely. I would love to get your thoughts on it.
I'm going to give two answers. So my religious teachings teaches me no. there isn't an afterlife, but my observation and my secular knowledge, for those who don't know, that's my knowledge of the world, I think there is, and here's why. There was I can't remember the book, but it was one of the books I read. It was basically about karma and karma, Akasha records, and karma energy. And what this would teach was that every single person that's born has a record. From the day that they're born to the day that they die, and then when they come back in another form, they have that record. As part of that record, sometimes what you would see is that there's babies, when they start to speak, they will speak of a memory that the parents know that they didn't experience, but yet the child can speak it so vividly and like they lived it. That is a part of your Akasha record. So my observation, my education has told me there is more to death than just not existing. I think a part of us gets reborn in a different way, not as a bug or anything like that. I don't believe in that, but I believe that a part of us gets recreated or reborn in another way, and then that creates the other person. And that's where our initial memories come from, as well as for those who've experienced trauma. Have you ever noticed that you can be living your everyday life, you watch a movie, you see something, and you begin to cry, and you don't know why you're crying?
Mm-hmm.
That is a part of your Akasha record. Something happened maybe in another way or in another essence of you that is triggering something, and that's why you begin to cry. So for me, I get emotional when I watch a movie where someone is being persecuted, and when they're about to rise back and save their countrymen, save their land, save their family, that gets me really emotional, especially at a young age it did. And I really didn't understand why until I read that book, as well as I did a little bit of more research. One, I grew up without my family, so seeing someone fight for something that I didn't get to experience triggers a response in me, as well as maybe there was a part of me that witnessed their family being abused in some way. And maybe I was powerless in the beginning, but eventually I was able to overcome it and triumph through it.
Right.
So that's how I answer the question. Good question.
Yeah, definitely a good question. And for myself, I believe that we're all energy. I think we talked about this before. The energy that we possess. I believe that when we sleep at night or when we're asleep, our souls go out and have the best soul experience in the world. And it's a beautiful thing, right? I think that when we pass, there's pieces of us that is left to watch over those, to help guide those that we leave behind, to remind them to live. And then we ascend. So, do I believe in the afterlife? I believe that it's temporary. The work that we do physically impacts the work that we do after. And that's just to go around and comfort those and let them know that, hey, I'm still here. I still got you. Like I still feel the energy from my parents and my family and friends that have gone and passed before me. And whenever I'm feeling down or don't have the energy, I can hear my son say, Daddy, you got this. And I can feel him still hugging me. Right? I can still feel him hugging me. So I know he's still there. And I know that he's somewhere looking over his old man. Just like my father and my mother and my brother and those that have gone before me. Maybe they're looking over their family members and things like that. That's the way I imagine it, right? And they're just as you said, they got that record of what they've done, and every time they're like, okay, you were so close the last time that you were there. I'm going to bring you, as you said, those memories that children have. When we come back, we start to speak of certain things, don't know where we got it from. The same thing, right? You know what I'm saying? When this knowledge that I have about grief, I couldn't tell you where it came from. Couldn't tell you where it came from. But it came from, I didn't read any books. I went and got certified, but I didn't read any books. But the knowledge was there. So that tells me that in another life, I was doing some good things. And now I get to complete that. I think we come back and we're recycled through in different areas, different bodies, with the same knowledge until we can complete the reason why we were born. As they say, there's 2 days that's very important in a person's life. The day that you were born and the day that you realize why. And I think that can play all the way through until you get it right. So do I believe in an afterlife? I believe that I believe that those things are temporary. I believe that the afterlife, we're here till we ascend and till we come back to get it right. And then from there, once everything is complete, we're finally free. We're finally free.
So it's like we're here to make sure that we fulfill what we're supposed to do, and then our energy is complete, and then it ascends to where it should ascend to.
Yes. To where people may call paradise. That's just my beliefs about it. I'm gonna put this up here. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for posing the question as well. And thank you and everything. Oh my God, Terraine, we've been going for almost 2 hours, brother.
That's okay. I have time, my friend. If you have time, I have time.
All right. You know, I just wanted to make sure and everything, because I was like, man, this is such a beautiful conversation. Anyone else in there? Or if, Rachel, if you have any more questions, please put them in there. We're going to continue this conversation, and and let us know what you think, right? You know what I'm saying? But also, if you get a chance to share it around with people that can benefit from the conversation that we have. And
actually, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Something came to mind as you're doing that. Do you think we both agree that there's an aspect of the afterlife potentially? Mm-hmm. Does grief go from one life to the next?
Yes.
Why do you think that?
Well, I'm doing a series right now called Ancestral Healing, Breaking the Chains of Our Ancestral Traumas. I believe that we carry grief and trauma in our bloodlines until we get to a place and understand it and to begin to release it. Our ancestors, those that have come before us, our strict bloodlines, right? Some of us are descendants of slaves. Some of us are descendants of the Holocaust. All of these different facets from the beginning of time to now. But we carry those because they never really properly released it. And so they held on to those traumas. And then they had kids. And their kids had kids. And it just like through the womb, you know what I'm saying, we're nurtured from what our mothers eat. So are we tortured from the traumas that's been passed on through the bloodlines. The only thing that changed is the generations. The reason why I say that, do you ever go through something and think to yourself, what the hell did I do to deserve this? And you don't know where it came from. But karma came back with a vengeance, like you owed that woman money. Right? She came back and was like, you're gonna pay me, and start pounding on you, right? You know what I'm saying? And you're like, hold on, I don't owe you money. What you doing? You don't have to do this. Tell me what you need. And so we do carry those things in our bloodline. They're carried through. And the deeper I dive into it, the more in depth my understanding of it is. I had a personal experience, and this is where the idea came. And then I talked to my friend Andrea Brunswick. Hopefully, she's watching out there today. But we were talking about it after the conversation. I was in my grief journey. My grief showed up, and it required me to sit with it. And it was like, hey, time to take it to the next level. Let me show you something. And every time my grief shows up, it takes me into these different doors. And I have to go in there and I have to be with whatever's behind that door, address it before I can come out. But this last time, well, not last time, but this time it showed up. And it wasn't taking me to any of the regular doors that I was used to, right? It said, I need you to go over here. And these big old doors. And I walked in and I just remember there's these light beings, and they're, you know what I'm saying, 40, 60 feet tall. They're giants, at least in my eyes. And here I am sitting with them. And I noticed that they were still chained. They were still chained. And I just remember one of them saying, release me. I said, I don't know how to release it. What do you need from me? I need you to give me peace. Okay, let's sit down and let's talk. That's when it dawned on me. That's when it dawned on me. Yes, the grief and the trauma we do carry through generations up until now, until we get to a place to where we can release the past in order to be present in the moment that we're here now. But again, that's just my beliefs.
I ask because I know a lot of people probably bring up the fact that slavery and the Holocaust and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then the opposite would have to be true. That means that the guilt of people who are descendants of those people who inflicted those kinds of atrocities,
Mm-hmm.
are they living with that? And if so, it's being manifested in so many different ways. Like you see some people complain that, well, I didn't do that. That was 60, 70 years ago. But yeah, but your grandfather may have done it. Your
Right.
great-grandfather may have done it, right? So if the grief is being passed along through the bloodlines and so is the guilt,
Mm-hmm.
will we ever reach a point where two people that are descendants from the victim and the victor, will they ever be able to get along?
Yeah, most definitely. Right? Because at some point somebody makes a decision and go, I want something better. Right? You know what I'm saying? It's like the Hatfields and McCoys, right? Think about the stories about them going to war. Two families going to war. How did it stop? A son and a daughter fell in love. And they realized that they had to do something. Because now the two families that's been warring for generations and things like that, and the hatred's been passed down, they're about to become a family. The one thing about them two that's always stayed constant was that family over everything. Right? So now the son and the daughter are getting together and they're about to get married and have a kid. So you mean telling me that we're going to continue to kill each other and things like that? No, we have to change our whole perspective. That's what it takes. So when you have someone who have been a slave master or slave owner and they're the descendant of a slave, it may take some generations, but maybe you come together and see that we're not too different. We're not too far off. And you may still carry some of these twinkle down beliefs, but there's something inside of you saying we need a change. So do I believe that wholeheartedly? Reason being, true story. This happened with me. Guy that I now call my brother, Mike. If you're out there listening, man, this is that story between us. So me and Mike, we met each other a long, long time ago, and we were both gangbangers. He was a Blood, I was a Crip. Went to war. And when I tell you that we went to war, we went to war, okay? I mean, we literally tried to kill each other on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes 2 or 3 times out of the day, right? Fast forward 20-something years later. He is my friend, my brother, and everything in between. Don't get any closer than he and I. I've got some really close friends, but don't get any closer than he and I. His kids are my niece and nephews. This man had been with me through some really crazy stuff. He has seen it. We talk about it. We laugh about it now. We still talk to each other on the phone and everything. So is it possible for 2 people that never got along to be able to get along? Yeah. And it's important that we do.
I agree. And I think understanding and love is probably the two most powerful ways. And I love the example you gave, and it was the example I was going to share, where once you have two people in that family who come together and out of love, who don't necessarily know the history, or who don't, maybe they don't even care, because they look at the other person like, this person is just like me.
Yeah.
Right. Same tribe, same city, same wherever. And I think if people were to just sit down, look at each other, and just realize, and that's probably one of the reasons why I don't necessarily talk about race, because I only see one race, the human race. If people just sat down and just spoke to people, you realize how similar we all are, regardless of our skin color, our religion, or otherwise. What do most people want? They want to be happy. What do most people need? Peace. You give them those two things, you give them a way to provide for themselves and their family, maybe, and they can still come home and be happy and get peace. I think most people will be comfortable with that. So I do agree that to bring people together, you need more of that.
Yes.
I not sure if the guilt and the grief will be passed down that way, but I do know that it can be if it's taught.
Yes. Yes.
Right. I think that's the way it gets passed down more so than anything else.
Yes. And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. People are not born racist. They're taught to be racist. You could put a white kid, Mexican kid, black kid, Indian kid, babies all in the same room, and they will find ways to play with toys together to build buildings out of building blocks, and you know what I'm saying, and just have fun with it, right? Just have fun with it. It's taught. It is taught, and the same way that is taught, the same way that loving and accepting people that don't necessarily look like you can be taught. Or maybe we should stop taking that nature away from the kids and let them grow up with their friends, right? And let them decide. Let them decide. It's not your choice to take that away from them. It's not your choice to teach them hatred. It's not your choice to teach them love, neither. You have to put them in environments to where they can learn. And the best way that they learn is through life experience. You have to stay out of their way, man. You have to stay out of those babies' ways, man. It really disappoints me when I see those individuals doing that, because it's like, why would you do that to another person? I could have easily taught my son how to be a gangbanger, drug dealer, pimp, and all of those different things. But instead, I gave him the choice, and he chose to be a kind, loving kid. And I think that should be the example.
I think so as well. I
think
if
that
you
should
can
be the example, man. You know what I'm saying? And if we can carry that on in our lives, the world will change. But we've done a lot of damage. There's a lot of damage done to people. We're not broken. We're just deeply hurt. And so it takes people who are out there doing amazing things to open up the doors to allow the healing to start. Biggest problem is too many people are looking for people to follow, right? They're looking for somebody to lead them. To me, that part of it I've never understood, because I never needed to follow anyone, and I'm not a leader. I'm a servant. I think in my life of servitude, I am pretty good in that aspect, right? But I don't want people to follow me. Find your way, right? Find your way. But here's some things to help you out. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, it reminds me of there's a religious group called the 5%ers, and they're part of like the Nation of Islam Muslims, and they believe that the majority, like 5%, know that have the knowledge, and then there's some people that are like in between, and then the vast majority are just sleepwalking through life, and they're very influenced, right? Which is why you get the name 5%, because 5% knows what's going on. Or for those who are a little bit more contemporary, it's like the Matrix, right? They've awakened where everyone else is asleep and they're still plugged in. And the reason why I share that example and what you said is there's some people, because of their grief, their trauma, their life, it's not the way that it is, they're not able to lead themselves, so they look for other people to be leaders. And what happens, unfortunately, is that how do you determine who's a good leader for you or who's a bad leader for you? And I think the bad leader in general will deliver you results very quickly, but very temporarily. They're fleeting. So, for example, you're trying to work through your grief, and part of your grief process is that you've isolated yourself and you feel like you can't get the type of relationship that you want. Right? So a bad leader will say something, and Tony touched on this, will say something along the lines of, well, be a high value man, just make all this money and you can get any girl that you want. So you're like, oh, really? Like, yeah, look at Leonardo DiCaprio, look at Denzel Washington. There's already examples out there, right? And you're like, yeah, like I see the women that Leonardo DiCaprio gets. They're all always under 25. And when they hit 25, he gets another one that's 24 or 23. And I see like everyone thinks Denzel is this. But what they don't teach you, which is what a good leader would teach you, is that, well, they did all these hours of acting. They came from this type of lifestyle. They worked this many hours. They worked this hard. To get where they are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, they put in about 10 to 15 years of work.
Yes.
Can you commit to that?
Yes.
Like, I don't know. Well, you said it can be like this if I just do that. A good leader will tell you the years that it takes. They'll show you the beginning and the middle of the journey. A bad leader will show you the end. So I think that's where a lot of people who are going through these types of trauma and who are grieving, they get lost in the sauce because someone will take advantage of them during their low moments, during when they need someone. And they'll present a finished product and saying that you can achieve this, just follow me. In America, I used to read about a lot of the shootings that happens because of, let's say, religious leaders and things like that. David Koreshi and the Branch Davidians and things like that. Right? So when I see that, people will think, oh my God, how can people do that? Those people are just like you and I. They were regular people at one point in time. They were going through something and someone took advantage of them. That's how easy it can be, right? So I just wanted to highlight that point that you shared, Tony.
No, you're totally right. You know, I think sometimes people are afraid to see what's on the other side of their life. So when they see someone out there telling them that you have to be a certain way and this, that, and another, they've been beat up so much that they want somebody to feel, they want to feel as if somebody actually has their back. It's okay to have mentors. Like, it's okay. I have mentors. I think those are really necessary to teach us the things that we don't know. You know, it's okay to have I have a business mentor, right? I have a nonprofit consultant that I'm still learning things, man. You know what I'm saying? And she called me out the other day. She, because she was like, well, like, we're going to put together a team. What do you want, this, that, and another? And I'm all over the place, right? Because I never had a team before. It's always just been me. And she was like, well, I strongly suspect, Tony, that you may have a little trouble delegating things, don't you? I said, you know what? You're going to stop calling me out. But yes. You think what I'm saying? Like, it's okay for that. And I said it just like that. So you're going to stop calling me out. And she just started laughing. I said, all right, well, what is it that I need to do? See, I'm not naive. I'm far from it. When I say I'm a student, right? I'm just a messenger. I pass on what I know and give it to the next person that needs it. That's it, no more, no less, right? Um, but I do believe that we don't need leaders. We need people to teach us to be better at the things that we do. And the reason being, prime example, and I hate talking politics, but have you not seen what the government's been doing to us? Right? They turn
Talking
around.
about American government.
Okay, yeah, American. Okay, America. I keep forgetting you're in Canada, but American government. Let's think about this for a minute. Have you not seen what they've been doing to us, man? Like they poisoning our foods. We done went to so many wars that we shouldn't even have been involved in. I mean, and they've been lying to the people. We got a homeless epidemic, drug addiction epidemic, and things like that. But yet we still finding ways of taking care of other people's countries and not taking care of the people that are here. And that hurts for me to be able to see my brothers and sisters, black, white, you know what I'm saying, Asian, Hispanic, all of them. They're all my brothers and sisters. It hurts my heart to see the suffering that's happening and not being able to do more. Like when people get up and go, man, you do a whole lot. I don't think I do enough. I can have 100 different things going on, and I'm still looking for 100 different things to add to it. Just because I don't ever want to make my brothers and sisters feel as if they're in there in the fighting this battle by themselves. I want them to know that there's somebody out here fighting with you that see the struggles that you're going through. One, because I've been there, done that. I've walked the path. I had to fight my way in order to get to where I am. Do I still fight? Yes, I do. And I still have my challenges. I just don't have bad days. I have challenging moments. That's it. I know not to carry one day into the next or the next moment into the next one. You know what I'm saying? It is what I go through them, I learn them, and I let it go like the wind. I have no expectations. And so I don't ever want those individuals to feel as if someone gave up on them, especially when I can see that they can help change the world. You know what I'm saying? And be better. They just need someone to give them the opportunity and mentor them to be better so these things don't keep happening. To break the ties from the government and go, no, we're going to take back our lives. We're going to take it back. We're going to take control of it. And you don't get nothing else. I don't need your money. What I need is the opportunity to go out here and do for myself. And that will eliminate a lot of these things because healing is a process. I want to put this comment up here from Rachel. And tell me what you think about this. Daniel, thank you for tuning in, man. It's great to see you. It's been a while. By the way, great podcast as well, man. And hope everything is going well with you. And again, thank you for tuning in, man. We've been having a great conversation here. What you already know, you've been on the show before. Got to bring you back on, man. Got to bring you back on so you can keep us up to date on what's going on with you. But this one. I feel like the need for leaders arises because of indoctrination is like inescapable for most people. So the ones that do think for themselves, they appear to be a leader. What are you guys' thoughts on
that? Me first or you first, sir?
Yeah, you go first.
I agree. I think I'm just trying to go back. I'm trying to remember my history here, my timeline. So I think I'm going to speak from the Black perspective. We went from a time where we're big on community, and it was very close. So within the same neighborhood, you had the school, you had the church, you have everything. And then what I think happened, to Rachel's point, is we began to get indoctrinated into maybe cultural teachings outside of the religious teachings. And I think when we started to separate from what was being taught within the homes and we started to look outside of it, for leadership, we began to see things that were very appealing, temporary. So I'll give you an example. My Black Americans out there, religion is very, very big in your household. If you go back to your grandparents, it was huge. Everyone remembers, Mama used to wear the church crown, and, she used to lay out Grandpa's leisure suit and all these days. So, I'm young, but I still remember. But
yeah, understood.
yeah, there's a certain type of hierarchy in that. And what you had was everything rolled up to your belief in God. So any issue that you had or your certain behavior, you had to make sure it was right with the Lord. So I think what has happened over, let's say, the last 20, 30 years is those same teachings that we're supposed to get from one place, we're getting it from so many different places.
Yeah.
And like anything else, once you start to fragment yourself and you start to want to come back and be whole, you need someone to make you whole again. And
Yes.
if you don't have the religion to make you whole, if you don't have the family to make you whole, who's going to make you whole? You're going to go to someone that appears to be whole themselves. But behind closed doors, they're very fragmented, they're very damaged, they're very broken. So what has happened in our community that I would argue is once the household became fragmented, you had the man and the woman pitted against each other because they weren't in the home to resolve it. So we went to the Vogue magazine, we went to the Red Pill community online, we went everywhere but what traditionally has worked for us.
Right.
And that was always the structure of the household. So now what you have is you have a generation, my generation, who's growing up. We don't want to get married. We don't want to have children. We don't want to have relationships because we're being told now, why should I get married when this woman here is going to tell me all she's going to bring is the table? And then this man over here is going to say that I make 6 figures, do what I want, stay home, be barefoot and pregnant. And no one is understanding that we're grieving the loss of the generation prior, because the generation prior was happier, more married, more successful, more unified. And somehow they gave birth to a generation that's the most mentally sick, the most divided, and the most poor. So I think that's what has happened. I hope that answers your question.
No, I think you. What do you think about that? Think about that answer, Rachel. Put your comment down there. Let us know what you think. I want to elaborate on that as well because I totally agree what you said. And when we talk about the free thinker, let's clarify that, right? Because I think there's different categories of free thinkers. And the one category are those who have broken the chains of communal habits, right? They figured out that, hey, this habit isn't mine. This isn't mine. I need to get rid of this, right? And they've gone back to the basics and finally figured out their own set of habits. Those are what we call the individuals. You know what I'm saying? Those are the ones that understand. They're very self-aware. Very, very self-aware. Then you have the free thinkers that have looked at the world and, for the most part, common sense has gone out the window. When you think about it, common sense has gone out the window. They have a certain way of thinking that can often be misconstrued as entitlement, self-absorbed, right? All of these things, these are the new categories that come along. Then you have the free thinker that goes, if you don't think the way that I do, then I have to hate you. We have to have an argument because you're not going to change the way I think. You're going to have to think the way I think if you want to be around me. Okay, that's fine too, right? And so forth and so forth. We got many, many categories when it comes down to that. Those that appear to be a leader they're the ones who life has handed them their ass. Handed them their ass. And they know what it's like to have to fight your way from nothing in order to get to where they are. And yes, they may appear to be leaders, but we're the ones that tell you, don't follow me. My path is not for the weak of heart. But while we're here, let's walk together. Let's share a cup of coffee. Let's break bread. Let's just conversate and laugh and enjoy these moments that we have with each other till it's time for me to go. Those people right there, they're good people. They understood what it was like to be bad, right? Because as Dr. Jordan Peterson has said, and it's a great quote, you have to learn how to be a monster. Then you have to learn how to control it. See, a good person is capable of doing bad things, but chooses not to. Those are the good people in the world, because they're the ones that's going to protect your family. They're the ones that's going to protect your family, right? They're going to protect the family because, for one, you come into my home, I'm about to take your head off because I got to protect what's mine. But then afterwards, like, you can see me walking down the street and I'll give you the shirt off my back. That's what I mean. Those free thinkers. Those are the good people in this world. You have to become a monster. Then you have to learn how to control it. It's necessary. It's necessary. You know?
Yeah, and I'm a fan. I have his book, one of them, The 12 Rules of Life, and he's Canadian too, so there's a connection there. So I know Jordan Peterson, and another quote that he said was that you have to make a decision in your life. Do you want to be the warrior in the garden or the gardener in the war? So that goes to the point where you have to, be a monster and control it. And one of the reasons why he said that is because you need to understand when it's appropriate to be the monster and when it's not. Because if you're not able to bring out that side in you when it's appropriate, then you're always going to have trouble and chaos. So I think that's fantastic points that you made, Tony, as well as the reference to the quote from Jordan Peterson.
I put this comment up here. I think this is from this one's for you. I'm gonna sit out on this one, but tell me your thoughts on this. Rachel agrees with you, except for your last one. But she also, and she brings up a really good point. The previous generation is at least partially, if not fully, accountable for them. And I understand where she came from, because we did raise the generation beneath us. Think about that for a minute. So, but I can also push back on it as well. I'm going to get your thoughts on it, Terraine. I want to get your thoughts on it.
I fully agree that they're responsible and accountable. 100%.
Okay.
1000%. And here's why. You're the parent of the child. Right? So anytime someone is born, I don't know about you, Tony, but I didn't decide to be born. Right?
No.
Our parents made the choice. So the generation that she's speaking of is actually my parents' generation, right? So they're fully accountable, and the reason being is that generation, let's say 40s, 50s, let's say 50s and 60s, let's say that generation, right? They were in a unique spot because they had the world they remember what their parents were, probably newly immigrants or probably not even immigrating yet. They knew the life that they had wherever they came from, wherever they were living at that time. That generation most likely migrated to America or Canada. They knew the struggle, they knew the work, they knew why they left where they left. They knew the life that their parents had. It was difficult, but they were united. They came to whichever country that they arrived, that they migrated to. They knew the struggle, they knew the determination, they knew how hard it was to leave everything behind. When they had children, a lot of them didn't teach their children that. A lot of them, from the research and everything, they looked at their children and they said that I want your life to be better than mine, rightfully so. But they didn't teach them the things that made them determined, focused, and hardworking.
Mhm.
So what happened is when they gave birth to their generation, a lot more rights were given to their children, right? So you had the tail end of the fourth wave, of the third wave of the feminist movement. You had more civil rights. We're coming out of racism. We're coming out of Jim Crow for those in America. We're coming out of all these things. Black Wall Street. We're coming out of this.
Yeah.
We saw how it could be, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we had some difficulties, but the parents didn't correct them. And I think one of the major reasons why that generation was working so hard, long hours, time away from the family, that maybe they weren't around. And maybe they couldn't be the parent that they wanted to be, and maybe they entrusted their children to figure it out, like how they had to figure it out. But it's a different land, it's a different landscape. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of parents from the previous generation, they played a big part in their children being lost because they allowed them to be raised by the television and in some cases by the streets.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I totally agree. Then we'll put Spirit Daniel's comment up there because he touches on the religious aspect, but also understanding death. And it is a great comment up here. Get your thoughts on that as well. I do agree. I do agree, but I have to push back to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? And I agree. Yes, look. I'm a Gen Xer. You know, and so millennials, Gen Z came after, and things like that. And yes, we did raise them. We did raise them. Now here's the part where I'm going to wholeheartedly agree, because being a Gen Xer, we grew up in a time to where gangs were very prominent, right? People were dying left and right. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? We didn't have the school shootings like we did. I mean, it was very few and far in between, but we had drive-bys, right? It wasn't nothing to walk up to somebody and beat them with a baseball bat upside the head. Things like that. We did come from a generation that was very, very violent. That's why there's no Gen X congressmen or presidents, because we don't play that, right? We just don't play that. When we begin to have kids, you got to remember, the men were going to jail. The men were going to jail getting killed. Left the women out here. The women saw what we were going through as men. And they said, I'm not going to do that to my child. I'm going to protect my child because I don't want my child to grow up the way that I did. So yes, I'm going to make sure that, you know what I'm saying, they're protected and loved, because these are the things I didn't have. We did the best that we had. We did the best that we could with what we had to work with. And then, although the intention was good, this is where my pushback comes. The choice is still yours of the outcome of your life. It's still your life. Here's where it gets misconstrued. Here's where my generation got it wrong, where the boomers got it right. And I praise the boomers, because my parents was teaching me to live in a world without them. We were teaching our kids to live in a world with us, as if we was going to live forever. So we forgot to give them basic skills. Learning respect and morals, learning how to cook, learning to go out here and get knocked down so you can learn to pick yourself back up. Not to go out here and gangbang or sell drugs or anything like that, but go out there and let life knock you down, knock you around a little bit, so you can develop some skills, right? And go out there and explore. You know what I'm saying? Go out there and play, and let me yell at you when you're not in, when the street lights come on. right? You know what I'm saying? Let me get you up on a Saturday morning in the summertime and tell you to get out the house and go play with your friends. Go ride a bike. Go ride a bike. Go skateboard. Go to the Boys and Girls Club. I don't know about you, but I grew up and we have public pools. Go to the pool. Go out there and be around people. Get into a fist fight. Get knocked down a little bit so you can learn how to get back up and defend yourself. But when you come in the house, know that I still love you. That's where my, yeah. You know what? If you put it on a shirt, Rachel, you got to send me one. I'm all for it. Okay, I'm all for it. but that's why I say I agree, and that's why I push back a little bit, right? Because we still have a choice. We still, as that child, you still have a choice to get off the games and go out there and play with your friends. Let's bring that back. Let's bring back going out and drinking from the water hose. Let's bring back going out and going and disappearing into the woods and slingshotting a squirrel. You know what I'm saying? And learn how to cook it up because you don't want to go home, right? I want to stay out here and play. Let's bring that stuff back, man. Let's bring it back. There's good and bad aspects to every generation, so we can't completely point the finger to just one without being accountable ourselves, right? Totally. So again, not taking anything away, just adding a different perspective to it. That's all. You know, I'm gonna put this up here, Daniel. We're gonna put this up here, and I'm gonna let Terraine elaborate on this for a little bit. Actually, it was talking about when we were born, we didn't ask to be born here. And you know, I was going to make a comment, you know what I'm saying, about my mom. I was going to be like, you know, no, I didn't ask to be born here. I think my mom just liked my daddy's doggy style, but you know, that's neither here nor there. But Mama, forgive me, please. So, and Dan, you already know, I understood it. I know how you reference God, and it's not religion. Religion uses God. I think we both understood when we had our conversation. You know what I'm saying? Religion is man-made. God is everything, right? You know what I'm saying? He's the beginning and the end, or they can be the beginning and the end, depending on what your belief systems are. And you're right, God does stand on his own. I want to get your thoughts on that, though, because I do believe what he says, we haven't learned the true meaning of life and death. That is why we take it so hard for some, yet no heartfelt feeling when eating a cheeseburger. And that is such a deep statement that I think it would go over a lot of people's heads. What are your thoughts?
I agree with the first part, and I agree with his second comment. God is not a religion. I'm a believer. I've always been. I was active in the church, which is religion, but I believe my connection has and always will be directly with God. It's like pick up the phone. I can speak to God when I want to speak to God. All I have to do is do it in the way. I can do it here. I can do it anywhere. I think people have a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Naive view of life. And I think people have a very, very arrogant view of death. And I'll elaborate. So when I say naive view of life, what I'm saying is that many people think they have all the time in the world when they do not. A lot of people will misuse their time and focus on things that aren't necessarily prudent in their life, and they'll defend that for as long as they can. And some people don't realize that the greatest gift you can ever give someone is time, because it's so fleeting and it's not in abundance. So I think if we can truly understand what it's like to live, right? And by live, I mean that do things that bring you joy, do things that improves the world, do things that better the world. I think that is living. Then we could appreciate the meaning of life a lot better. And when I say arrogant view of death, is that you'll have some people, they throw it out there so whimsically. So for example, they'll say that, I'll take a bullet for you, Tony, I'll die for you. And those same people, when you ask them, hey, do you have $5? They'll tell you no. So how is it that you can't give me $5, but you can give up your life for me, right? And I think also that it's hard to appreciate that death comes from every single person. When it's your time, it's your time. And I think we unfortunately don't realize how close to death we all actually are. So I say that we have an arrogant view of it is because we think that we can control that aspect of our life, where we actually have more control of our life versus death. Death we have less control over. I can wake up tomorrow morning, step inside my car, and that is it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But from the time I went to bed to the time that I got into that car, I have control over all of that. And I think that we need to be less naive about life and definitely less arrogant about death.
Yes. And Daniel just really elaborated on that as well. As you were saying it, saying having 6 cars, 7 houses, 10 boats, and we put more value than that, and then not into ourselves. Right. I totally agree. And I was going to elaborate on what he said earlier and kind of intertwine that. So Daniel, get out of my head. I just got dang it on taking my answers. We're going to talk about it. Okay. Love you, man. Love you.
But yeah, like material things will always
right.
Like we assign those things value. Like I look at me, like I have a house, I have a car. That doesn't define me.
Right.
Right? Because that can be taken away. You know what can't be taken away? The value I've provided to someone. If I've saved someone's life, if I've talked someone off a ledge, if I've inspired someone to do good work, you can't take that away from me. It doesn't matter if I'm homeless. It doesn't matter if I lose my job. It doesn't matter if I'm down to my last dollar. There's someone out there that I positively have impacted. That is true wealth. And I think that's where we have to build that up versus spending as much time communicating what I would call toys.
Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong. Look, if that's your thing, do you, right? But don't forget that it has no value. If that car breaks down, you're going to have to spend money to go fix it. But if your friend is hurting, you're going to have to spend some time with them to help them heal. One has value, one doesn't. So don't allow those physical things to take priority. Enjoy them, right? Because that's what they're there for. It's just like, with all the money and things that we may make, you're not going to be able to take it with you. So make sure that you do something good with it. Put it out there. Give it to, like, my money is going to my sister. I can't take it with me. And totally agree, Daniel. Got to take that power back, man. Definitely got to take it back. But it's a process. It's a process that's going to take a little bit more for people to start standing up, opening up their eyes and taking that power back, and reclaiming their rightful place in this world in order to help make a difference. But that's the reason why we do what we do now, have these conversations and, and things like that. It's giving people the knowledge and the courage and maybe the inspiration to say no more. I am taking what's rightfully mine back out of the hands of the people who took it from me in the beginning. Your freedom. Huge. Common fact is, as human beings, as long as we have people above us and laws that govern us, we'll never know what it's like to be truly free. We have some basic laws, and if you follow those basic laws, life can be a pretty beautiful place. The 10 Commandments, right? Thou shalt not lie, steal, covet anyone, kill, any of those things. All right, you know what I'm saying? And so, and you go all the way down. All the laws in the world are based around those 10. If you really think about it, right? Why do we need 1 million and some odd laws And most of those laws contradict each other, but they all based around the 10. Follow the 10. What the, geez, just follow the 10. You'll be all right. You will. You'll be a good person. Right? You know what I'm saying? So, I can go on a rant, but I'm not going to do that. But yeah, it takes us getting back to the basics, understanding human life, understanding life in general, and be willing to stand up and actually fight for what you want. Don't just let people take it away from you. But in my world, I'm glad that you brought this up, Terraine. I am the guy that would say, I'll die for you. And that meant that you can have another shot at this life without any expectation. But I'm also the guy that go, if you came to me and go, hey man, I'm hurting right now. I need $1 million. And I go, if I have $1 million and you ask me, what do you need me to send it to you? What do you need me to send it to? And I'm not going to ask any questions. You may just be doing it to see if I'm going to do it. I'm totally fine with that. But if you ask me and I got it, you got it too. It's just like if you sit down at the table and I notice that you're not ordering anything to eat, well, we about to get you some food on the table because I don't eat if you don't eat. Period. If I see that you need shoes on your feet and my shoes may not be the best, you got that. The shirt on your back, you may be walking around in your underwear, cold. I may have on 2 shirts. Don't really matter. You got my shirt. Because at least I got on pants and you may not have on pants. At least I give you my shirt. If it means that I have to lay with you to keep you company while you're taking your last breath, you got it. And again, that's just me. I can't speak for the next person. I can only speak for the things that I would do wholeheartedly without any sort of expectation, because I'm not asking you to do the same things that I would do. I'd be a fool if I did that. I'm not asking you to do any of that. I'm just asking you, if you have the opportunity to change someone else's life, do it, please. It's worth it. And then from there, if you want to go around and be a Grinch during Christmas time, go do that too. You never know, right? I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what you're going through. Oh man, Terraine, I got to go get something to eat, brother. You know what I'm saying? I am going to be on Terraine's show as well. Now, before I let you go, brother, I want to say I knew that this was going to be a great conversation. I love this right here, man. I can't wait to be on your. Oh yeah, by the way, you guys, if you haven't gotten your shirts yet, you are enough. T-shirts are here. Well, go to TikTok shop. They're on there, right? And they got some stuff on the back too for the people that's going to be reading it. Beautiful shirt. Mine just came in, and I figured I would just share it with you guys. Loving it right now. So if you go on there, check it out. Don't tell them I sent you because they don't even know me. Okay, they don't. But huge update as well. You guys know I have the magazine coming out this month. It's turned out to be very, very insightful. There's a lot of information. Hopefully I can get Terraine to write me an article for some of the magazines that's coming about. We'll see. Don't say nothing. Maybe he didn't hear you. But I will be on Terraine's show as well. Spirit Daniel, I got to get you back on the show, man, so we can get caught up and everything. So reach out to me, please, or I'll reach out to you, and then we can go from there. Just let me know what you got going on. And I know you got a lot of things going on. Rachel, thank you again for coming in, giving those comments. My brother, Lincoln Smith, that was up here earlier, thank you for tuning in as well. Everybody on Instagram, LinkedIn, thank you guys for tuning in. Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all of those, Rumble. Thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you to my amazing guests. Man, this is such a great conversation. We're going to do this again. And so, yes, Rachel, I did see it. I just didn't get back to you just yet. See, she's going to beat me up, right? See, this is why I don't pick fights with little people. They always threaten to be. I I'm going to get back to you. I will. I saw that actually they reached out to me, so going to be keeping you updated on that as well. Terraine, before I let you go though, tell people where they can find you, my friend.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, Tony, thank you very much for the conversation today. I really appreciated it. To everyone that was watching, listening, adding questions, fantastic comments. Thank you for the support and continue supporting Tony. Is doing amazing work. Where you guys can find me is at behindtheshades.ca. That's my website for coaching. I deal with those who are grieving in their relationships. I deal with those who are looking to find success, happiness, and work through the process, either romantically, personally, or professionally. You can find me on facebook.com/behindtheshades, as well as on YouTube. Type in the Behind the Shades show. You'll find me there. And I will, that's basically me. But if you go to the website, everything is there, but that's where I am. And thank you again, Tony, for the opportunity.
Oh man, thank you for being on it, man. We got to do this again. So you guys again, I'm saying, go check him out. His information I do have in the description section on the YouTube page. And if you're just tuning in and you like the conversation, maybe you tuned in a little bit later, go to the YouTube channel, check it out. To get see the whole episode. But while you're there, check out the other episodes as well. And if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. Now, before I close it out, Terraine, if you could leave the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
I would leave everyone watching, listening with this. Your happiness starts with you. Your happiness ends with you. Everything that you do between those 2 points is your responsibility, and it's your way to be accountable to yourself. Please proceed through life with every step towards happiness. If you can do that, you will be surprised how fulfilling your life can actually be.
That is beautiful. That is truly beautiful. For everyone else, guys, this is going to conclude this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. My stomach is beating up my backbone right now, telling me I need to put some sort of nourishment inside of here. So I'm going to go do that. And we're going to... Okay, one last thing. Yes, go ahead, Rachel. What's up? So she's... One last thing. Okay. Oh. But I'm gonna say this. But okay. I'm going to upload it when I go to the new platform. So be looking out for that. That's why I'm encouraging people to go to the YouTube channel because you're going to be seeing a lot more of there. Slowly but surely getting away from StreamYard. And so I got a whole new platform that I'm going to be using, which is going to allow me to upload the TV channels as well. So if you haven't already, go ahead and do that. I've already got it uploaded on that platform. So you will start to see me slowly integrate the new platform as we go on. Guys, wait till you see this logo that Rachel did. She did a beautiful job. She's actually working on going to be working with me on a new intro and some more other things like that. Beautiful work that she does. Please go check her out. Rachel Brown, she's on Facebook, she's on Twitch and everything. You guys, have her do some work for you. You guys aren't going to be disappointed. She's freaking amazing at what she does. Terraine, you already know you're a friend of hers and things like that. So, and thank you, Rachel, again, for the connections. And yes, I'm going to be reaching out to your friend to get them scheduled on the show as well. So, you know what I'm saying? You're going to be hearing a lot more from your friends up here, more in depth. That's just how we roll, okay? Just how we roll. With that being said, you guys, go out, enjoy your day, be with people that make you smile, and make sure you let those people know how they make you feel, because you never know what tomorrow may bring, okay? And with that being said, you guys, this is going to conclude this one. Have a beautiful day. Peace.